In February 5th of 2020, Alden Global Capital, a hedge fund out of New York, purchased...
You know, during these uncertain times, locally focused and based media remain critical to our well-being as neighbors.
We find it to be much more enjoyable and I think important to listen to the community voices.
Yes, I know you as a banker and a civic
StarTribune columnist Lori Strudevant and community leader Roy Terwilliger.
Why are you now working to promote local journalism? I thought politicians and journalists were on opposite teams.
You know, they're really not. They really are.
This is Democratic Visions. Here's Jeff.
Eden Prairie Local News, an online newspaper, just began its third year of publishing. I'm part of the group that helped get it going. Our nonprofit.org runs on sweat equity, grants, donations, and advertising. More than 2,500 subscribers get our free newsletter. EPLN has published nearly 1,400 stories, plus our 2022 voter guide. And we've got talented can-do journalists, techies, a support team, and a top-shelf board of directors.
I think that the biggest challenge to us in the next couple of years will be making the transition from being pretty much an all-volunteer organization to being an organization that has paid staff.
Community leaders Dean Edstrom, Jennifer Loon, and Roy Terwilliger are EPLN founding board members who have moved on.
Barb and Sue, and they've agreed to run our Newsmatch campaign this year.
In October, Roy and StarTribune columnist Lori Strudevant spoke at EPLN's annual public meeting. That meeting featured a short video with Roy and Lori. Here now is their full discussion.
Roy, it's great to be with you today.
Well, thank you.
Yes, I know you as a banker and a civic leader and a state senator, and back about 25 years ago, a candidate for statewide office. Why are you now working to promote local journalism? I thought politicians and journalists were on opposite teams.
You know, they're really not. They really are both, I think, really in a position to do the good things in the community, to provide leadership and to work on things like that. And so I don't really think there's an antagonism between the two. Both need to have integrity and to talk about things, both plus and minus, and work together. And so I think they're a good pairing. The local news is really important if you're going to have, you know, well-informed people for schools, city government, county government, and the business community. So I think it's right at newspaper is right at the heart of any size community.
You know, I read something this week by a Vermont-based journalist, and I'm going to share it with you, Roy, because I think you'll appreciate it. A functioning community, almost by definition, is a place where people take an interest in things that don't directly affect them. For example, when they worry about schools, even if they don't have kids. It seems to me there's a role for local news in sustaining that kind of broad-minded civic interest in the populace. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I think one other thing about communities such as we're talking about here, I think that they add a lot to the public good. They end up with teaching a lot of valuable life lessons as they go through.
Yeah, one other thing I would say for local journalism is that it improves local government. Would you agree with me?
Totally. I think people really are appreciative of having all the facts get out there. And most issues are really not issues. Most laws are passed. People agree on them. And I think the news media, newspapers, make it possible for people to have a good understanding and go forward, whether it be city, state, county, or whatever.
I spent my career at the Star-Tribune watching politicians like you, watching a lot of them, and I think they perform better when they know they're being watched.
I think you're right. That's right. And I think also that the public, looks at people in a better way when they are feeling that they're being told all the facts, both pro and con.
It seems like we're all in the democracy business.
That's right, and banking is a vital industry, within a community.
Absolutely.
And they have to be there to try and make certain that everybody is given the opportunity to succeed in some way. And so I look at banking as being part of democracy.
Part of that same story.
Yeah.
And you certainly put a lot of your adult life effort into making democracy work better as a legislator and a candidate for higher office, and then as an administrator. I was pleased to learn that you at one point were studying to be a city administrator.
I was. I lasted 6 months.
Well, though you've done many things in your life, I do see a consistent thread running through your career story, and that is that you are a community builder. And isn't that really the role of local journalism too, a community builder?
It is, and it's to make certain that there's an informed public out there in the community so the community can grow and people can prosper. And I look at community banking in the same fashion, as I did legislation and all that sort of stuff as well. They really go hand in glove.
Yeah, I've heard it said that communities that have good functioning, thriving civic affairs, they have a high level of social trust, those are also places where there's strong local journalism. And I bet you would say those are also places with strong local banks.
Well, it is, and I really would, I'm not just saying that, you can almost look at studies that have been done talking about banking, and you can look at the results of their work, and then you can drive into the town and you can see the results. Mm-hmm. They're very evident. And it's the same thing with a good well-informed media, public from the media. They're working together. Good schools, good city, good county.
Well, you and I both acquired our notions about community by growing up in small towns in South Dakota. That's something I know that we have in common.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was, sorry to learn, in the 2020 census that this little town of Winfred, South Dakota, is down to only 38 people. I think.
That's right,
Yeah.
and most of them are my relatives.
My hometown is a little bigger.
I went to high school in a bigger town, the 13th largest town in South Dakota, and town of Madison. And
know it well.
So it was a very interesting way to grow up. Small town to bigger town, and then bigger yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what was your exposure to local journalism growing up?
Well, there was no newspaper in the little town of Winfred, but Madison has, and still does have, a 5-day a week. They call it the Madison Daily Leader. And they've done a very, very good job. And when the small communities around there didn't have a newspaper, of course, they were able to, they'd have columns for each of those small towns. So it was a well-informed public, well-informed electorate, citizenry. And there was a college there, and I think that helps as well. So it's really a hand-in-glove type of thing with journalism.
When I was in high school, I worked for the Del Rapids Tribune for a time. The school newspaper was actually printed as a section of the town newspaper.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
my goodness, yeah.
And that was an experience because I learned how important that community, how they valued that newspaper. It was read the moment it hit the newsstands, or the moment it was in the mailboxes, read from cover to cover in most every household. As you've experienced here in Eden Prairie, local newspapers have fallen on hard times as the digital age has really come to take hold. Now with news available from around the globe just 1 or 2 mouse clicks away, it's been tough for local papers to survive. I think our industry made a mistake in giving people the impression that news online was going to be available for free. Local news isn't free,
well,
is it?
There's no such thing as a free lunch when you really get down to it.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have steady, strong journalism in place. You have to be able to support that, and that means paid subscriptions, advertising, etc.
With so many of local papers struggling, with the digital age really dawning, and now a nonprofit model like the Eden Prairie Local News is developing, how would you advise communities to proceed to find the local news that they need to thrive?
Well, I think the model that EPLN is following is really an ideal model. Nonprofit, fortunate to have people who are willing to work at a much less than market price. And you can't always rely upon that, but we're fortunate that we have a lot of community support that's coming forward, and I think it will only grow. And with it being digital and almost at your fingertips any hour of the day or night, it will work.
Well, the medium may change, but the journalism has to stay there, and that's how I think you're trying to secure in Eden Prairie. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Well, I'm just a small part of it, and I can only say I'm not a journalism person. I'm really more, I've just been around town long enough that I can talk to a few people, and that's kind of where we're at.
Well, keep talking, Roy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for now. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.